And she was a winner of well, 1,000 people who ran, but she came through it on top. And that was one aspect of her name reaching the news. But in the last 2-3 weeks, with the killing of 2 police responding to a domestic violence call in Harlem, she once again gained attention from the so-called general media, negative. And it's based on that particular incident and that we have invited her on today to speak to the Harlem community from her vantage point and also cover a number of other areas relating to her work in the council. So, Sister Kristian Richardson Jordan, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table.
Thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I hadn't been following the situation relating to the shooting of the 2 police beyond the fact that they were tragically murdered in an apartment in Harlem. But then I listened to White Talk Radio, WABC radio in the morning, and they referred to this lady in Harlem, a politician in Harlem, in a negative term. And so I said, all right, what's going on here? Because I don't take these hits on Black politicians as being just a singular thing. I look at it as being a part of a hit on us as a people. But that's me. And I was very happy for Sharon Nelson to make contact with me regarding you, and then being in a position to offer you the opportunity to give your point of view from your vantage point of the criticism that you received for sending condolences to the parties involved. So from that point, just fill us in, and then we'll get into other parts of your work as councilperson.
Yes, I definitely appreciate your take on it, because I definitely see the hits on me as being racialized and frankly racist. So we should, as Black people, be concerned. The thing that's sprinted this into national spotlight is a segment that was done by Fox News. And so we should all be concerned when the mass media is following Fox News as well, because we know that that is not a station that does responsible reporting, and that is not a station that is supportive of us as Black people. What I want to clarify a few things, if I may, about my position, just because there's been misreporting and misinformation in the media. So the first thing I want to clarify is that there are tweets from the Black Lives Matter movement. I am an organizer. I was an activist at the height of George Floyd movement organizing. I, at that point and still now, call for police accountability. I, at that point and still now, call for budget justice, which does mean divestment from NYPD, but in a form that is investing in our communities so we can preempt violence and we can preempt crime. There's been a lot of taking tweets from literally 6, 7, 8 months ago and putting them on the media screen right now as if I'm tweeting things about police accountability literally as these officers are experiencing death, which is not the case. So I want to clarify that. That is misinformation and misreporting. The other thing is that condolences should go all around. And I found it really shocking, actually, the very visceral and frankly, very white supremacist reaction to my giving condolences to all the families that are impacted. You know, we have 3 mothers who lost a son. We have 3 families that are grieving. And no life is worth more than another. All human life is equivalent. And moreover, we need to be looking at the root cause of the incident. I will maintain and I will continue to say that it was completely preventable. And from that space of it being preventable, we have to look not just at the officers, but at LaShawn McNeil and at mental health. which is going unaddressed in our community. It is rampant, and it is without care. We need more mental emotional support services. We need to be looking at domestic violence and looking at those cases before it reaches a critical boiling point. And there are all kinds of community-based public safety alternatives that we could be looking at that actually would prevent tragedies like what we saw on 135th Street. And that's my position. And what you see happening in the media is really a warping of the truth because they don't want us to think about how we actually move towards a nonviolent world that is both nonviolent in the sense of interpersonal violence in our community, and also nonviolent in the sense of we are addressing police and state violence as well. So that is my position, is about looking at creative alternatives that would actually stop the root causes of violence. And I stand by my statement with condolences going all around, because to take this incident of this officer involved shooting and then use it as a call for more cops is extremely toxic. It's very scary. It's going to impact our communities because we are the ones who are heavily policed, and we are the ones who experience police harassment. And it also impacts us in the negative in terms of not receiving the services that we desperately need. And that's the part of the story that, in my opinion, is not being talked about enough. That we have a man who had mental illness, that was at play here, and that went untreated. And if we had done a better job as a society to provide those services, we could have preempted this. And no amount of more officers on the street is going to stop the next one. Only proper services and proper mental emotional health care is going to stop the next one.
Great. And your attempt to clarify your reasons for condolences, what kind of traction has it gained, or did it gain, in the so-called general media?
Well, I think it's gained a lot of traction among Harlemites. I'm someone who's very embedded in my community, and a lot of us, and by us I mean Black people, we know what's happening here, and we know what it is when white media sees an opportunity to try to discredit and sort of character smear one of us. It's because that I'm not part of that agenda, right? So I'm not part of this white supremacist agenda. I'm not part of funding a police state. I'm not part of things that would displace Harlemites in terms of housing. I'm not playing the game. So there's a lot of people who are very upset simply at that. And because I was a surprise victory, and really a victory for the people, because I don't come from an elitist vantage point of being in the sort of political club milieu and therefore not controllable, I am certainly a target. And what I mean by saying all of that is that they know what I meant. They know exactly what I meant. I didn't mean that it was okay to shoot officers, and they know that. I simply meant that we share condolences to all sides, and they know that too. But it's about leveraging media to squash my voice, and through that to really squash the movement that we've been building here in Harlem for systemic, meaningful change and the liberation of Black people. And that's really what it's about.
When you look at the criticism that you receive, how would you classify it within the realm of other criticisms that have been proliferating against the new district attorney, the mayor, and possibly others in the wings? You mentioned white supremacy, and that is a broad term, and it's an easy term. What specifically is involved in the criticism of yourself and other Black politicians that does speak to white supremacy? What is the essence? What's going on? Who are they targeting? And quote, for what reasons?
Well, so I think what's happening is progressive Black leadership is being targeted, and anything that is, and so we have to take a step back and recognize the deep relationship between police and white supremacy in this country, which is, it's simply factual. I know people will get on me for that too, but it is simply factual. I mean, we have white supremacist groups like the KKK literally recruiting their members into the police department. And then we have people from our communities who will apply to the police department and be rejected. And so we do have to look at what's going on with the systems in play. We have cases like Eric Garner, where there was the violence that of the chokehold and the choking him out, but there was also disciplinary action taken against the one officer, a female officer, who did not participate in the killing of Eric Garner, and she was punished for not participating. So what we have is a system that is really working to protect a certain class of people, and wealthy people, property owners, and white people. And when you have progressive politicians like myself, Black politicians like myself, who push against that power structure, there's going to be an effort to discredit and to silence us. And so if you notice, even with Eric Adams, there's support up to a certain point. When he starts talking about the residency requirement, everyone gets a little shaky. But the residency requirement for police would actually help to have some community accountability. So every time you as a Black leader introduce something that is an accountability measure, there's a reaction. Now, Alvin Bragg put out a day one memo that was about not policing these low-level offenses. And people took the recent murders of these two police officers as a reason to attack Alvin Bragg for his day one memo. That doesn't even compute. These aren't even related. Not prosecuting low-level offenses has literally nothing to do with the officer-involved shooting that happened on 135th Street. But this is some of the manipulation that I think takes place within narrative in order to find a way to demonize us as Black people, and demonize Black politicians who have progressive voices. And we need to look out for this because it is very insidious. Now, I want to be clear, there's also some very not insidious comments that have come my way, straight up calling me the N-word, and I don't know what kind of things could be said on the radio. But there have been straight up threats to my office, and derogatory language and terms like that from people who saw some of these Fox News segments. So all of that is to say that there's the insidious stuff, and there is also just straight up old school white supremacy, which is frankly alive and well, and also rearing its head. And if I'm getting this type of phone call and email, I would venture to guess that there are other Black political leaders who are more progressive who are getting it too.
Okay, but you're speaking about it, and we don't hear that from other Black politicians. We can safely make that assumption, but how do you explain, to the best of your ability, I'm not dealing with you as a psyche, how do you explain the communication of what's going on in their offices, the kind of negative or threats that's coming into the district attorney's office, to even Eric Adams' office? Not that they should be complaining or telling us about that, but at the same time, there's something missing if we don't get that information. If it doesn't come to us, we can't react or even form a response to it as a group.
Yeah, that's valid. I can't really speak to others and sort of their comms, their communication strategy, their comms strategy, and what they choose to share and not share. I'm a very transparent person in general. So I share very publicly a lot of things that go on in and within my office. It's something that I just believe in terms of political transparency. Um, but I can't really voice why others aren't necessarily doing that. I do think that the I do think that the truth of the matter is that we need programs and spaces like this. So I appreciate this platform where there's a space to share what's going on and to talk directly to people. So like having this opportunity to be broadcast and speak to people about what's happening. Because what people are getting from other media sources, mainstream media sources, it's it's angled towards selling more papers and having having more folks buy the broadcast and things like that, and not necessarily angled towards informing the public, having a well-informed public. So that's
Okay.
just to say I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's part of the solution.
Let's go to the very beginning, and that is the road that you have traveled to get to the position that you're in now, and share that with us.
Well, I was a teacher for over 10 years. I'm third generation Harlemite. I have a lot of love and affection for my community. I didn't see myself as running for office because my background has been as an organizer and activist, and I always saw myself a bit more as railing against the machine than working inside of it. And my general view of politicians was that they're all sort of just sellouts, and it's just about image and money, and it's not really about the community. But I really got inspired. A few things happened. I got really inspired with the last round of midterms and seeing some of the elections of the squad, not just AOC, but like Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and seeing these women speak truth to power and run these races and win. And that made me open up my imagination to all the possibilities, and even to look back, right? If we look at leaders like Shirley Chisholm, and we look back at like some of these Black radical leaders, including Harlemites, because Harlem has a strong, beautiful Black radical tradition that they don't want us to know about, but it is straight up here. That all really inspired me. And then I really have a strong faith. I know people believe different things in terms of God. That is fine. But I really felt called to run. I really felt called to serve. And so that was part of it too. So I started literally by just making a platform of what I wanted to see for the community. It spelled out Harlem, and it covered 7 different policy focus areas. And I put it on a leaflet and I started passing it around and just talking to people. And that's literally how it started. And it just grew from there. And so it was very non-traditional campaign. It was a lot of I guess what you would call retail politics, where we just like stood on the corner and talked to people and knocked on doors and talked to people, and just said, let's have something different.
You were going one-on-one.
Yeah, it was one-on-one.
I'm
laughing at me.
Listen, the points that you put on this flyer, what tended to gain the most response?
So the holding police accountable was definitely a big one, because that we were looking at Black Lives Matter and George Floyd movement, and I have to say that we can't let that die. We shouldn't act like it never happened. We shouldn't pretend like it's dead, because until we actually have some systemic change, we're still in that same place. So so I just want to say that. But that got a lot of attention. Definitely being an abolitionist was the most controversial part of my platform. That's the idea of the possibility of a world without cops and without jails. As I keep stressing to people, that is not something I imagine happening tomorrow. That is not something I even can fully grasp happening in my lifetime, to be perfectly honest. But I think it's something that we can strive towards a nonviolent world where we've done so much work on providing safety nets and social services that we actually have made it so that we don't need a violent police force, at least not in the same sense and form as we see now, because we've done the work to actually preempt crime before it happens. So that's what it's about. But needless to say, that got a lot of talk and a lot of controversy. And then the actually affordable housing, big topic. And I put the qualifier in there, which people joked about, because I was saying actually affordable. But the reason why I felt the need to put that in there is because affordable housing, quote unquote, has become such a catchphrase. People are using it now for things that are completely unaffordable to the community. So you have units where you need to make 70, 80,000 a year. The median area income in our district is 49,000, and they're trying to pass off this 70, 80,000 a year as if it's so-called affordable, quote unquote. That's not affordable to us. So that's why I said actually affordable housing, and that garnered a lot of response because a lot of folks, even if they're not all up, I'm a bit of a policy wonk, and I'm looking at the census numbers and stuff like that. But even if they're not a geek like that, most of us know, like we see it, that displacement is happening in our community, that people are getting priced out, that it is becoming richer and whiter. And if you're not third generation Harlem like me, that's okay. But it is unacceptable to displace people. It's unacceptable to have new people coming in at the expense of those who have been here. And we need to be putting things in place to allow people to stay here. And in my opinion, even allow some people who have been pushed out to come back. We now need to take some corrective action. We lost 10,000 Black residents of Harlem in the last census. And so in any income bracket, all income brackets under 60,000, we went down in population size. And so it's simply there that the displacement is happening. It's not just in our heads. It's not just we see it and feel it. It's happening. So we need to take corrective action and put some actually affordable housing in place. And yes, that does mean that some developers and some people who are making a lot of money are going to have to make less money. They're not going to make no money, and they're definitely doing okay, but they are going to have to make less money so that the community we can do the right thing and the community can be in place.
And the strategy for winning, you put out a flyer because you got to do something and you want to draw attention to those points that you have. And you began to mobilize, or not, you began to mobilize, people began to come to you. You can see that you form a team, or you have a team beyond your family and your close friends. What was your strategy for winning?
Yeah, it was honestly about getting pledges. So we talked about, okay, how do we get people to pledge to vote, to support? And we set a pledge goal, and then just started asking people to commit their vote. And then what happened was, because we had people who got really excited, about change and about something and someone new, they started being willing to volunteer. And so we have a volunteer list of over 200 volunteers who helped with the campaign, who are helping now with the office in different ways. So there's a lot of really beautiful service happening. And that's really where I would place the credit, honestly, is it's not even with me, and I wouldn't even put it with, some kind of major strategy. I would really give the credit to the community, and the number of people who just gave time and just worked for free to help make it happen because they wanted to see a change in Harlem. And I think I just represented a change in so many different and unique ways because I'm 35, I'm the youngest ever in the seat. I'm a Black woman. I do identify as LGBTQ. I've never made more than $35,000 a year. I've been a teacher in sort of after school teaching space, and I'm not part of any Democratic clubs. I don't have, that kind of hookup. And I think people just found that refreshing, that there was just a lot of new and different energy that I represent. And I think, I give credit to the community because people really got invested and got involved and we're willing to try, on a race that said that people said really couldn't be won because there had been such a long time incumbent. And it's really, people really felt like this race couldn't be won on the outside. So mainstream media didn't even see us, they like didn't even know we were there. But the people were talking. So for those of us who are on the ground, we felt the sense of possibility, and that's why people were volunteering more and helping more, because if you were on the ground, you could feel it. If you talked to people, you could feel it, because people were saying, oh yeah, I heard of her. Oh yeah, someone gave me a leaflet before. Oh yeah, but it wasn't really being covered in a big way.
Share with us some of the surprises among the volunteers.
Some of the surprises?
Yeah, in other words, wow, so-and-so is backing you. And I know they retired 18,000 years ago, and they come out the woodwork, or someone, some business. That's what I'm talking about. Or a student, someone from City College, someone from Manhattan Community College.
Yeah, well, so I'll start with, in terms of some of the older folks, I felt really blessed to be endorsed by Hawa Ba, who's one of the mothers of the movement. Her son, Muhammad Ba, is a fairly well-known police brutality case. She supported my campaign and really helped rally the troops in terms of getting some other people, particularly from the African community, to support and be involved. I also got support and was endorsed by Tyreek Scarlett, who is a former Black Panther, not that you ever stop being a Black Panther. And so he really got involved. Cyril Ennis from the Black Panther Commemoration Committee, and a couple of the organizers, Imani Rashid, and a few organizers from a group called Alush, which is formerly Salsa Soul Sisters, which was a Black lesbian activist group. So these are some of the older Harlemites that really had some gravitas, who got involved and helped out. And then on the youth level, because a lot of us were, like I said, I'm 35, and a lot of times I was the oldest one in the room. So a lot of us were young, and a lot of us are young. But there was definite support from City College folks and even some even some folks from Hunter, even some folks from Columbia got involved too. There's a young organizer named Caroline who runs a group called the Black Women's March, and they don't usually endorse politicians at all, but they endorsed me and brought out tribes of people to help. So that was very cool. I got endorsed by the Sunrise Movement, which I didn't expect. But that's Sunrise is a citywide youth org that focuses on environmental justice. And it makes sense, you know, because I'm a writer as well. I published 2 books and I love to write, and I put out all these statements that, to be honest, no one really read, but I put out a lot of statements during the campaign, and one of them was an 11-point plan for environmental justice in Harlem, and that got to Sunrise, and so then they were very interested in supporting, and they did support, and they did some phone banking and text banking, and that was very cool. I took a class, a female candidates class, with Civically Reengaged Women and Sharon Nelson's organization, and learned a lot of the nuts and bolts of just what it means to run for office, and you know, what steps you have to take. And so that was something I leaned on the whole time as well. And yeah, I think it just came in all kinds of ways. Yeah.
So your first day at work as council person, what are the issues that are most dominant at this point in time that you're looking at from the overall council standpoint?
So front and center, as soon as I entered into office, there was a building, a new development that was in the ULERT process. They actually tried to push it through before I got here without success. So now they have to contend with me, which I know they're not happy about. But the new development is it's called 145, and it's on 145th and Lenox, and they want to do 2 large buildings. It's over 70% market rate housing. It's over 600 units of market rate housing. So it's really just a total ode to gentrification. It's really going to displace a lot of people. They have a piddling amount of units that are quote unquote affordable, but not really, by what's called MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing standards. And we don't need to get into the weeds too much, but it's just to say that this is not affordable by what Harlemites make. They're using a different tool to measure what's affordable. And so the project is really alarming. And I've had several meetings with the developer. I proposed alternatives several times that would actually be affordable to the community. That was shot down. They wouldn't pull their proposal. They plowed ahead. They went through the community board. Community board 10 has voted it down. Unanimous no with no conditions. They still have not pulled the proposal. They are now going to the city council. So it is right now on Mark Levine's desk, where he can either do he has a recommendation vote. So he can either recommend that it be approved or not approved, and then it goes to the city council body. So right now my office are really focused on corralling votes and corralling support against this development, because we have to stop doing this. We have to stop displacing people from Harlem, and we have to send a message and have a new rubric. You know, I spoke to Councilman Charles Barron, who is in Brooklyn in East New York. If you look at census numbers in East New York, their Black population actually went up. It was like one of the only areas where a Black community actually gains numbers as opposed to being displaced. So I talked to him about this, and between him and his wife Inez Barron, they've really set a standard so that developers don't even approach with projects like this 145. The developers wouldn't even come with something so completely terrible, frankly. They know right off the bat, okay, if I'm going to East New York and I'm dealing with the Barrons, I need to have at least 60% affordability or it's not getting off the ground. So that's what I want to work to establish here in Harlem. And so that's front and center. It's a big issue right now. And some people have gotten on me about that because I did a big protest, and needless to say, powers that be weren't so happy about that. But we had some news media out there and did a big protest on 145 and Lenox. And that actually was day one when I was in office. I did that protest. It was called the Not for Sale, Harlem Not for Sale rally.
So I tell you, we at the Wisdomtable, and I'm speaking for myself, however, the other members of the Wisdomtable, we've interviewed Charles Barron twice, and he explained his formula, which is the correct formula for affordable housing. And one of the things that we asked him was, had other council members come to him for insight as to how he does it. He said yes, but they still went and did the so-called traditional way. So your position is a very, very beautiful position to hear for us, even though Byron is in East New York. Your position in terms of finding out how he does it and then following that particular formula, that's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. As easy as it could be for others to do, and from my vantage point, they have not done it, and their districts in Brooklyn have lost as far as Black people are concerned. Now, that spot on 145th Street is right there where National Action Network has their office, and the building that they want to put up, is it that area right there behind or adjacent to National Action Network, or would it displace all of the businesses and the Dunkin' Donuts and whatnot that are there now?
Yes, that's correct. It would displace all the businesses on that strip. It also does displace the National Action Network, though the new plans of the project have a new office for National Action Network. And they also have a civil rights museum. And this is sort of what they've been dangling, not sort of, this is what they've been dangling as a carrot, saying, well, we're going to give a new National Action Network office and we're going to give a museum. And people have different feelings about that. I mean, my feeling about it is that it's Harlem and we're amazing and we deserve all the things. So, we do already have a overrepresentation of museums and cultural institutions. But as far as I'm concerned, we could have all of them. That what doesn't bother me. We could have everything in Central Harlem because we're fabulous. So we could have the museum, we could have new office, and we could have affordable housing. But we need to have affordable housing. It needs to be actually affordable to the community, and it needs to not be displacing people. And it's not okay to sacrifice the people who live here for the museum, because then we'll have this beautiful civil rights museum with Black people on the walls and no Black people in it, because we don't have any more of us here in the community.
What it reminds me of, and I don't know what the dealings were at the time, but there's a museum space on 110th Street and Fifth Avenue. sounds as though they did the same thing there, but that's how it sounds. Right there on 110th Street and Fifth Avenue is a so-called museum. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The issues of public safety and violence occurring in the community as it relates to young people. What is your examination of causes and possible solutions?
So a few things. The first, as I mentioned earlier, we need to address mental and emotional health. There was a substantial amount of money that went into Thrive, which was supposed to be mental and emotional health for the city. We need to figure out what happened to that, where it went, what's happening now in terms of what I believe is a new initiative. I think the new version is called Mental Health for All, or there's a Mental Health for All hotline. But we need for that to be really well established, more heavily promoted, and we need some culturally responsive and responsible mental health that is geared towards Black people and available to our community for free and easily accessible for free. And then I also think we need to look at jobs for the youth because our youth need positive ways to be engaged, and they do need some form of compensation. And one of the things that I'm hoping to do with my office is work with a young man who has a brilliant idea for a Sweep the Streets program. And he wants to, he's calling it Sweep the Streets Before They Sweep You. And it's basically let's get together as a Harlem community, get some of the youth and have them help clean up the streets and help improve sanitation and give them a stipend for doing so. So it's and the way he's proposing it and the way we're looking at it, it addresses re-entry, it addresses youth engagement, it addresses the need for jobs and employment, and it decreases violence and crime all at the same time. So I want to see more. I want to see that and more creative solutions like that, where we're getting our youth involved in the community in really positive ways.
Well, I tell you, in terms of you're attracting a lot of help in your race for council, you might very well experience that kind of attraction of professionals or tradesmen to whatever efforts that you are mobilizing for. I have one more question to ask you, and it's really an observation. Then I'll turn it over to the remainder of the wisdom table, and that is, it seems to me that mayoral control of education under Bloomberg led to the closing of a number of trade schools. What is your observation, and how would you correct it, at least for Harlem, not necessarily geographic Harlem, but for students who are in Harlem who could very well go to a trade school in the Bronx and Queens, et cetera?
Yeah, we definitely need an investment in trade schools. I think we need a multi-pronged approach. So we do need to have academics and have a pipeline to college, but we need an investment in trade schools and alternatives as well. We need some investment in entrepreneurship and supporting and sprouting entrepreneurship as well. I am not for mayoral control of schools. I am not for it. There's a wonderful candidate running for assembly out in the Bronx named Jonathan Soto, who I have endorsed, who is actually running on this platform of getting rid of mayoral control of schools and going back to not exactly a community, a school board model, but something that is a community-based and localized model.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. The wisdom table. Do we have any questions? Dr. Esther Hyatt, do we have your question or questions from other members of the Wisdom Table? And this program, the Wisdom Table, comes from the Grand Houses community. The Grand Houses is located on 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. Dr. Hyatt.
Doc, you gotta unmute yourself, Doc.
Okay.
This was very refreshing, very, very refreshing. A young woman. I thought of several things, because number one, as she was speaking about the things that she was doing, I thought about Inez Barron and Charles Barron. And I went on, I continued to think, and I said, you know, those two individuals, Charles and I, well, they come as a team, as one. Charles and Inez, we should gather them so they could be on our wisdom table together. And I'm thinking also, I was introduced to this lady, this young lady, because of what she did for the mother of the young man who was killed. And some of the Imani group individuals, they wanted to know how they could connect with her, the mother, because she's the mother who is burying her son. And here we are living near Harlem, and we're in Harlem, some of us, and we don't know anything about this lady, what really happened. We do have Sister Joyce on, and she wanted to make a donation to help this family, you know. So I don't know if she could hear me, but I would like her to make a statement, if at all possible. She's on audio. Could our engineer help us with that?
She has to unmute herself, Dr. Esther. You have to ask her.
Is there any way I can unmute her?
She has to unmute herself. She did it. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi there, Sister Joyce.
Hello. I'm impressed with the young lady, Miss. You're Jordan, are you?
Yes.
Kristian? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, Miss Jordan. Very nice. I'm very impressed with your ideas, and I really would like to speak with you if you have any free time, about 10 minutes, a project I'm working on for the shelter families. But I want to find out if you could please, if any way, give information about how we can help the mother of the man killed.
That's the son, Kristian, the son.
Yes.
Who, yeah.
Yeah, can we do it through your office or?
Oh, that's not a bad idea. I was hesitating because I know that she is, you know, understandably laying low, and so I don't think that would be proper to give out like that kind of info, but you can definitely give through my office. That is fine. So you could definitely give through my Cash App is Happy Harlem. So if anyone has Cash App, it's like the money sign and then Happy Harlem, all one word. And I will make sure that gets to her. Or
is there any other way? I know nothing about Cash App. I don't know what that stuff is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say,
sorry.
Or you could. I was gonna say, or you can come by our office. Our office is.
That's more like it.
Our office is 181 West 135th Street. So we're actually on that same block. We actually were a few doors down.
I know the area quite well. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, this is Grassroots Radio.
Mhm.
And
Any other questions, Mr. Healy? You have a question?
Yeah, not that I have a question, but I have to give some accolades to
Kristian.
Miss Jordan, because first of all, you're a throwback in terms of the types of politicians that we had during the time when we were doing political work down south, and people stuck to their, they stuck to their roots, and they were honest and sincere, and they were not thrown back by those suppressive forces who try to intimidate us. Because that's what that is when you get that information from Fox News, that intimidate us so we would stop our actions. And believe me, you are far above. And you say you're 35?
Yeah.
You have the mentality of a 70-year-old person. So you're twice, 2 times above where you think you are in terms of age. Because, first of all, number one, the courage it takes to do what you're doing, and your commitment, your verbal commitment in terms of, and your physical commitment to this situation is what we've been wanting and needing for a long period of time. Matter of fact, no, we need to clone you. That's what we need to do. Because believe me, if we can get more politicians in positions like yourself, that'll be our the way out of the hole that we're in, that they put us in over a long period of time.
Well, thank you. And if I may, I think this is a good time to plug a couple people who are running for office, because I have strong solidarity with 2 people in particular who are running for office here in Harlem in the next election. Ali Dini is running for state senate. Ali Dini would be the youngest Muslim woman ever elected to a seat. She is very politically sound and has a heart for the people. She's been an organizer and activist, and we share a lot of the same goals. She's really got a strong mission around housing and making sure that we can have affordable housing for our community. And she is a formerly houseless individual herself.
You're tuned in to GHCR, Grant Houses Community Radio, the soul of the Upper West Side.
Are you looking for volunteers?
If you have ever gotten a phone call telling you that your social security number has been suspended,
yes.
According to the social
security number,
hold on a minute.
last year there were over 718,000 reports of social security
public service
related
announcement.
Victims of these scams lost over $44.8 million, a loss of $5,800 per victim. Here are some things to remember if you get a phone call from someone saying that they are from the Social Security Administration. It is not a policy of the Social Security Administration to call you on the telephone. If you owe money to Social Security, the agency will mail you a letter with payment options and instructions on how to appeal the decision. It is not a policy of the Social Security Administration to suspend your Social Security number or to demand secrecy from you to resolve a problem. It is not the policy of the Social Security Administration to threaten arrest or legal action against you if you don't immediately send money. It is not a policy of the Social Security Administration to increase your benefits or resolve identity theft if you pay a fee or move your money into a protected account. It is not the policy of the Social Security Administration to require payment with a retail gift card, wire transfer, internet currency, or by mail. It is not a policy of the Social Security Administration to text or send email messages to you that contain your personal information. If you get a phone call from anyone saying that they are from the Social Security Administration, just hang up.
Put a frog in boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans, it's a story that rings true. We learn to endure the heat in silence. We apply what we learn to life, the bills, the job, the family. things we're expected to handle with ease. When life heats up around us, we just try to stay afloat. We let the water boil. Reaching out isn't easy, but you've never been interested in easy. You joined because you were not afraid of hard work. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait until the water boils. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
And the wisdom table continues. Dr. Esther, you were asking a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have a call out for volunteers?
Yes. So do you mean for my office or for?
Yes, for your office
Yes.
or for others? And I did notice Miss Nelson had her hand up.
So in terms of volunteering, I will say yes, we are going out 6 times a week, and we do a lot of outreach in the community and constituent services. We do mutual aid, and we're also doing political educations. And so if any of that interests you, we also have task forces going around different focus areas, environmental justice, housing, safety. We have an addiction-related care task force. We're doing different things. And all of that could be found at KristianForHarlem.com. So that's www.KRISTIN, KristianForHarlem.com. And we also are doing a monthly newsletter. So it's great if you can sign up on that homepage. You'll get the monthly newsletter, and it says a bunch of what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
There's
Miss Nelson have her hand up?
No,
Sharon?
she said it was an accident. No, she didn't.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is Doug, the engineer, and we put together this Wi-Fi network and radio station and stuff that we do. And the studio is in Grant Houses itself. So we'd like for you, and LEROY is right, Charles Barron's been on a couple of times. We'd like for you to come back again.
Oh, I would love to
Okay.
come back.
And anytime you have something.
Okay. When if Doug cut himself off?
Yeah, but one thing, excuse me for a second. Ms. Jordan, you were mentioning politicians that you were recommending.
Yes, thank you. There's another one. So I was saying Ali Dini for state senate, and there's another woman I wanted to mention. She is running for assembly in the 70th Assembly District, which is also Harlem. Her name is Cherish Patton, and her slogan is Cherish for the People. She is a young organizer and activist who I met and grew to love through the George Floyd movement. She organized the Breonna Taylor vigil and has an amazing team of young Black women who are just doing the work. She is born and bred Harlem, full on Harlemite. And she's up against quite a challenge for assembly, but bringing in some new and young energy. Her major issue is around mental health and getting mental health services. She talks about mental health in the hood, particularly getting mental health services to our community. So that's I think a beautiful cause and purpose in terms of missions. So she's Cherish Patton, running for Assembly, 70th Assembly District. And then, like I said, the other name is Ali Dini, running for State Senate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is Doug back?
No, not yet.
Okay. Ms. Kristian, in terms of your point about the spirituality of your mission, that is a calling, what in your family background would you look to as being a source of your understanding of the spiritual side of life?
So I was raised by two parents who weren't particularly religious, but my grandmother on my father's side, my father's mother, was very deeply Baptist, and so the imprint of faith came first and foremost from her, with just a really strong Baptist faith. And I got baptized because it was something that she really called upon my father to do, and that was sort of my first like exposure. Now, I will say I've been on my own faith journey. And I am not Baptist. I actually am, I identify as Christian Buddhist, and I practice both faiths. And in the Christian space, I'm a member of Salem United Methodist Church. And then in the Buddhist space, I'm a member of Soka Gakkai International Buddhist practice. And then beyond that, I do believe in spirituality as well. So I don't think people necessarily need to embrace religion. Although, like I said, I'm Christian Buddhist, so I do recognize Jesus, a beautiful Black Jesus, who I believe is deeply radical, and I see faith leaders like so just a while ago we passed MLK Day, right? And so I sort of see faith leadership as a calling to act in a social justice space, because if we're going to embrace the idea that everyone is a child of God, and that the sole authority is truly God, then that means we have to acknowledge the divinity in every person. That means we can't just isolate and ice out those who are economically making less, or those who are houseless. That means that even the people we imprison are human beings and are children of God. So when we look at those who we imprison, I mean, that's our collective shame. These are people we're like attempting to disown, but we can't, because we're all in the same kingdom together. So my faith does tie to my politics very closely. And yeah, I mean, in terms of family tree, I would definitely say my grandmother had the biggest impact on me in the space of faith. And then other than that, it's just been studying like different religious leaders and my own journey. Like I said, I've traveled around. I've tried quite a few spaces, and I'm sure I'm not done yet, because you grow in your relationship with God. It's a journey that continues. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Esther.
Can't think of anything right now, but
let me bounce this off of Kristian, and that is the mental health piece.
Oh, I see.
How much of that might be a result of our young children, boys in particular, introduced to drugs in the early stages of their life by way of Ritalin, and now we're seeing the effects of that with our older male population. And Ritalin is a gateway drug, as opposed to thinking that marijuana is the great gateway drug. Ritalin, my understanding, is a gateway drug, and therefore this is like an invisible source of the imbalance that we see in many of our people. Your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate that thought and observation. I actually hadn't thought about it in that way, but I will say that that certainly feels, there certainly feels like there's truth to that. And I would love to investigate and see, you know, what that linkage is, because I believe that that's very likely true. And I think that's one of the things we have to think about is in the space of mental emotional health and education, how we're going to not stigmatize our kids.
Mhm. You mentioned a program called Thrive. Did you say Thrive?
So Thrive was a mental health initiative by the city under de
Yeah.
Blasio.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I went to one of those meetings and they had a lot of people out, community people, everyday people, and they showed such an interest in working with, I think de Blasio's wife had something to do with that program. I'm not sure, and it was through Columbia. Are you familiar?
Yeah, and I don't know the full details, and frankly, most of us in the public don't, which is some of I think the issue is we're still trying to figure out what happened to the budget of Thrive, and where are those funds now exactly, and then what are we going to do to direct that in new and meaningful ways. But I think the direction of some on the ground grassroots mental emotional health, it needs to be prioritized. And yeah, culturally relevant and culturally responsible, because you're right, there is a way in which, I mean, what Leroy is bringing up is right, because there is also a way in which sometimes that gets used as a way to imprison and stigmatize our kids. So we do have to be careful with that.
Okay.
Levine, you mentioned Levine, and in terms of this proposal for 145. Levine holds what position? What position does he hold?
He's our Manhattan Borough president.
Yeah.
And this is right now on his desk. We have in the community, we've been reaching out to encourage him to do a forum, which I'm hoping will happen. I've spoken to him about it, and he seems really open to that idea, to do a public forum with the community about the 145 project. So that would give the space for us to, you know, come out and voice dissent. I have already had the convo with him and voiced my dissent, but you know, for it to not be just me, but for him to see that that's really a community response to this, that we don't want kind of irresponsible development with all this market rate housing in our community.
Okay, Dr. Esther,
Yeah,
Brother
you
Doug?
have a new person. I think her name is Adams, and is she's the and I understand there's a lot of women now involved.
We are majority women.
Yes.
For the first time in the history of the New York City Council is majority women, which I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm hoping to see that happen, not just a symbolic change, but to see us be able to really bring some powerful things for women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our speaker.
The speaker, yeah.
Yeah, and
have you met with her?
I have spoken with her multiple times. We have each other's numbers. At the moment, I mean, we'll see if it shifts. But at the moment, she has expressed her dissent for the 145 project as well, and also the chair of the Land Use Committee, Council Member Salamanca, has expressed dissent as well. So I am hopeful. You know, we can't go to sleep. And there's a reason they're still pushing this project, even though I have asked them to pull it, and the local community board has also asked them to pull it. But I am hopeful. It's definitely a winnable fight. And we definitely do have council members who are on side to vote it down.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Is Brother Doug back with us?
Yeah, I'm back here, Brother Leroy. I just had one other comment. I just wanted to let the Councilwoman know that one of the reasons we set something like this up is because we thought that people need to have a voice. And they didn't have it before. And now, because of this, people like yourself coming in and speaking directly to the community, of course, we record it and replay it, and people can record stuff so that they can hear the stuff straight and no chasing from the people that matter, and not be filtered by people who don't look like us or who don't care about us. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, and I completely agree with that. And I appreciate the platform, and I would be happy to come back again because it's great to be able to talk directly to the community in this way.
Okay.
So, Sister Kristian, thank you very much for your time, for your insights, for your spirit, for your work. We, as you have heard here, they're just mobilized another army to work with you. And the Wisdom Table definitely is a platform that reaches out into the community. And this is the first political interview that we've done this year, and there'll be others covering the political leaders in Harlem and outside. So thank you once again, and the very best to you. And thanks to Sister Sharon Nelson for alerting us to how vibrant you are and how much of a factor you're going to be in the Harlem community. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been another segment of the Wisdom Table coming to you from the Grant Houses in Harlem, USA. Thank you very much for passing this information on in the form of a podcast in terms of links, and it can inspire other young men and young women to get into the political arena, because it's not difficult once you get in to win. God bless you all.
Okay. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Great. It was great to meet you as well, and thank you again for the opportunity. I definitely appreciate it. And
We'll
thank
be
you.
calling on you. We'll be calling on you.
Yes, I would happily come back, and thank you, Sharon, for setting it up.
Yeah, we'd like to get you to come over to the studio at Grant Houses, so that because Levine's been there too, and so a bunch of the rest of them. So you should come over there so you can see kind of the work that the residents can do when they got some backing. Okay,
And
just like you did.
And you guys should also invite Brad Lander, the comptroller, so he can get some money into Harlem.
Yes, sir. Okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sharon. Great idea.
Yeah, because that's the only way. You got to bring these people in and ask them to their face, where's the money?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. When they come in there, you know, they came once they when Levine came, not Levine, Benjamin, the guy who ran for
Brian Benjamin.
No, not him. He came. We did him too, but not him. Kalik, Benjamin Kalik. He was a council person from the East Side. He came in. He came into the studio, and he thought we immediately started asking for money. And we asked Levine. Levine came in. We asked him for money too. This was before he was running. We asked him for money. He said he would do it. We said we hear a lot of stuff. And the funny thing is, when they come in, they was sitting there before the show. When we're kind of not, this is not being recorded now. So, so when we came in, they were. Hold on, let me just make sure.
Yeah, no, you stop recording. No, you stop recording. You're okay.
Okay. So when they came in, they were sitting there and they were saying, okay. We got, we're in Grant Houses in the studio that we built. If you go to the website, you'll see it, or we book it, GHCR .nyc. So, you know, and the chairman of the authority has been there as well. But anyway, he's sitting in there and he's saying, okay, we're going to talk about jobs. So I said, hey, half of the people, according to the authority, that live in the authority are unemployed. I said, how many jobs you got? He said, okay, we can't talk about that. So, you know, we can't talk about jobs. I said, okay. He said, well, let's talk about, we can get them cheap internet. I said, it's very hard to tell poor people what's a good deal, because most poor people, they know a good deal, a cheap deal when they swim. That's how they live their lives. They're making $4 or $5 decisions all the time. Oh, okay. Well, what are we going to talk about? Talk about money. Which how much money you can bring to the community. How much can you bring? You know,
let's do this. Well, let's do this, guys, because I appreciate Brother Leroy and I appreciate everybody around the wisdom table. But let's itemize an agenda. For example, Harlem has a rat problem. Okay, we have a problem with not enough garbage cans. Okay, let's put these things down in a list. With the summer youth employment, what Kristian was talking about, a neighborhood cleanup program. That's wonderful. You know, let's take care of our block. You know what I mean? So when we ask people for money, don't just open-endedly ask them for money. Say we need money for summer youth so we can hire these kids to do some neighborhood cleanup. You know, so that this way we don't have a rat problem. You know, wherever we have severe rat issues. You know.
That works. That's smart. That's what we need.
But you see, but then you link it to something, and like let's say if you have Brad Lander come in, and you say, Brad, you know, Mr. Comptroller, you know, you're the guy that's dishing out the money for the city of New York. What money are you dishing out for sanitation or, you know, what subsidies have you given the senior citizens? You know, how many senior citizens in Harlem are getting screened? You know, because to Kristian's point, that's an affordable housing subsidy. Okay, what are you helping our seniors to do? I mean, you know, how have you reached out for the seniors to know about SCREE?
I mean, one of the things I'm hoping we can do with SCREE is actually make it an automatic enrollment, and that's something my legislative director is looking at.
And guess what, Kristian? Maybe there's something you could do with AARP locally. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, that's pretty great to build on that idea. Yeah.
Teach the community how to win for this community. And, you know, it's like teaching somebody to fish. You give them a fish, they eat for today, but you teach them to fish, they eat forever.
Well, you know, I'm glad you said that because, you know, when John Lew was the controller, we interviewed him and he was one of the first guys. There was another guy ahead of him. He came in too, the guy with the brother with the glasses. But when John Lew came in, he actually broke down who was getting all the contracts and who wasn't. And it's still on YouTube. We were stunned. Our mouths dropped.
Well, look, let's bring that back. You know, we have something called the MWBE program, Minority Women Business Enterprises. You know, hold the comptroller accountable for that. You know, what is the way for minority businesses to get some of these city contracts? How does that work? No, but that's what you have to do. You have to hold people accountable because they're so used to, you know, placating Black folks with the angry Black person. Let's start asking some serious, legitimate questions.
Okay, that works for me.
They can't say that, oh, well, you know, we don't know what you want or you haven't asked us. Yeah, we want to know what's up with SCREE. How do we make that automatic? What's up with Minority Women Business Enterprises? We don't need that to be a 15% program. We need to at least have it as a 60-40 or whatever, because the city is a city of immigrants, a city of minorities.
Yeah, and it should be like a real law, not some, you know, not somebody thinking that is, oh, we're going to give you 30% because of our law.
Well, you know, the white folks are not going to let that go down. White folks are not going to let that go down as law. However, you know, you can say.
Why not?
I don't see why it couldn't be though.
Yeah, why not? I mean, who are they?
Well, I'm just saying that
if you did the numbers, let me tell you, if you did the numbers, there's more people who are non-white men, according to the census, than there is them. If you really looked at the census numbers, you look at the numbers, they're the minority and they're getting the majority of everything, particularly when you see what the controller came in and told us about how they spend it. And plus, when Charles Barron came, you said the city has $110 billion they spend every 12 months. 112.
Well, I would welcome, I would encourage you guys to invite this next comptroller because we're on the early end of the 4-year cycle.
Gotcha.
You know, let them.
He might be honest. He might be honest now, huh?
That's right. Yeah, get the money while it's early. Because then they'll say, oh, we done spent it. Y'all don't have it. There's nothing left.
I will say, I definitely think it's worth inviting Brad Lander on. I think that, you know, he is actually the only sitting politician who endorsed me in my campaign.
Oh, wow.
He actually endorsed me.
Get him in here. Let's get him in here. Get him in here. Let's get him in here. You our council person. So anytime you need to be on here, you let Brother Leroy Sherman know. We'll make it happen. Anything you need, anytime. Just let us know, and we'll make it happen. Period.
All right. Well, you guys are awesome. I thank you for having the forum.
Anytime.
Brother Leroy, you know, you continue to just be wonderful and amaze me every time we talk. So I thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna cut it now so that I could get everything to y'all. All right, later. Thank you.
Take care.
See you again.